Good afternoon. Hello and welcome to this extra webcast about finding the true cause. I'm Andrew Vermes and this is Kepner-Tregoe. A bit about Kepner-Tregoe for anyone new to this. We've been solving problems for 62 years and helping millions of professionals in IT, engineering, healthcare and other key industries do the same. Past the advertisement, we'll get right on. Today's agenda is all about helping you to verify the causes of any given production, technical or other kind of problem. When we talk about finding the cause for a problem at KT, we're referring to a specific set of circumstances that some product or process or function or team or marketing process or sales promotion, something is not performing as it should. Some quality standard or other has not been met. Now, KT has 62 years of research and experience with this, and many of you will know something about that. Today, we're focusing on ensuring that you really do have the real cause or causes, and there are 4 parts to this. We'll talk first of all about where causes come from, then things to avoid in making sure that you have the genuine cause, some words about where to start, and then how to use the data to your best advantage. So that's for today. I hope you've got a suitable cup of tea or, where permitted, a nice cold beer. So let's talk about where cause comes from. There are 2 components to causes. Where does any kind of variability, any kind of change from the norm start? Whenever a process or a part of the process stops working properly, then the end product, whatever it is, may be affected. If you have 2 products, one defective, one okay, then it follows that one must have experienced something different along the way. And if the problem has just started, something will have changed. Essentially, no new problem can come into being without some kind of change, though the change may be small and hard to spot in a complex set of processes or IT architecture. In addition to that, the change may be a natural one, such as component wear. So generally speaking, you're always looking for 2 causal factors. One is that difference in the affected item and some kind of change or trigger event. That's what you're looking for to explain why the particular problem or symptom has arisen. So out of normal condition of a symptom or component, change in the surroundings or circumstances are the clues you're looking for in every case. And you know that. You're used to looking for changes, you're used to looking for differences. Now, some stuff that can get in the way is worth discussing. I Am Spartacus. You might like this movie. If you haven't seen it, do have a look for it. Fantastic performance by Kirk Douglas, not long departed this world, sadly, but he was very, very old and had a good life. You know, and they all said, I am Spartacus, when the Romans wanted to find out who was the renegade slave. Now, suggestions are good, but not all of them. If you want to find the real Spartacus, it won't help you to listen to all the men claiming to be. And as we go through this short session, we'll look at ways of filtering which possible causes are more or less likely. It is good to collect the possibilities, but not so good to spend your time trying to check them all one by one, because you possibly don't have the time. Some things to avoid. 3 things to be very, very careful about. So as humans, we like stories. We tend to look for likeness, correlation, prior knowledge. This looks something like something I know. The statistics show a correlation. Those of you who are fans of Karl Popper, those of you who've had a scientific education will remember, I'm sure, that correlation is not causation. And if you have any time, and I know you don't because you're still at work and we've got lots to do, but just for fun, you can Google lots of lovely, spurious correlations, and there's just one of them here, which I thought was quite funny. Sometimes, usually, when stuff happens at the same time, it's just coincidence. Second one then, trial and error. I love this. Being given several things to do when the IT goes wrong is pretty irritating. particularly when it gets to the level of when you have to reload the entire software. That's kind of terrible. So trial and error is something we fall into a bit by accident. It's something we can try. It's quick, easy, cheap, so we go for it. Doesn't work. Then a colleague suggests something else. That doesn't work either. All the while, what we're doing is changing the original conditions and making it harder to gather evidence. Look, Sherlock Holmes didn't touch stuff until he'd looked at it closely. In the real world, crime scene investigators likewise focus on preserving evidence. So be very, very careful with trying stuff. It's okay up to a point, particularly if you can control what you're doing and take it away again cleanly so that you don't disturb the trail of evidence. Now, number 3, test cases. Particularly in information technology and in engineering, it is quite normal to try to reproduce the effect. Nothing wrong with that, so long as it's part of a well-ordered design of experiments. But unless you can be sure that your test bed is exactly like the real-life environment, your test proves only that you can create the same symptom. It does not mean that what happened in the real incident is the same. So what you have is a possible cause, but not necessarily the actual cause. So beware of those 3. They're not the only things to avoid, but those 3 are pretty important ones. Now let's have a look at where to start. We know where to start. We look inside our heads at our own knowledge. We do not come to these sessions without being experienced problem solvers. And make sure the ideas about cause are clear. Now, where are you going to get them? You can draw fishbone diagrams, very good things to do. You will have your own ideas and inspiration, light bulb moments. You will have knowledge bases. You will have guesses from your colleagues. But here's the message. Where to start is with a fully explained idea. A good theory shows how it might have caused the problem in detail. A big hindrance in all this is being able to tell whether the theory is valid or not, is a lack of that detail. I've seen operator error, those 2 words, appear on too many millions of reports to count. And unless we can imagine and describe exactly what the operator might have done incorrectly, or operators plural, it will never be possible to verify. So we must force ourselves to think through the cause and effect chain we are suggesting and add the detail. So for example, if we are talking about operators and we are putting forward a theory, it might be something like an inexperienced operator may not be aware that the right-hand flange has to be replaced every time we open the cover. And if it isn't, it will eventually move and scratch the products as they pass through. So an explained theory is much easier for you to check out than an unexplained theory. If you just say it's the operator, so what are you talking about? So when your colleagues offer theories, please invite them to add flesh to the story and describe in detail what they think might have happened. Now let's talk about proving it. Proof is often hard to come by, so we will almost always need to weigh the evidence. In real-life problems, the burden of proof, of course, is not as high as in a court. But the consequences of getting it wrong can be absolutely enormous. Fail fixes, wasted time, large bills for things that replaced but didn't need replacing, customers unhappy, reputational damage, and on and on and on. So I have a poll for you to have a look at. What is the largest amount you've seen wasted in organisations you've worked in? What's the largest amount you've seen wasted on a cause that was assumed to be correct but in fact was wrong? Is it more than 10 million, more than 1 million, more than 100,000, more than 10,000, or less than 10,000? Please all vote now. So we're looking at that. One of the ways of being absolutely certain, of course, is if you catch the burglar in the act. It reminds me of living up north in a small town called Penistone, where there was one particular family that I won't name for fear of getting sued, where anytime there was a burglary, the police just went round to their house and invariably they found the swag in their house. And it was said that that family had never eaten dinner together because one of them was always in prison. But failing that, oh, that's very good. That's a kind of even distribution here. Sadly, a quarter of you have experienced, not quite a quarter. Oh, right, okay. So a fifth of you have experienced so far waste of more than 10 million, which is a bit sad, really, because it's not just about the waste in terms of cash, but actually life. I mean, we live our lives to be useful, to be productive, to be helpful, to do good stuff. We don't live our lives to have them wasted by doing things that really are not adding value. So we don't want to go there. Now, let's talk about using the data. Many of you will recognize this. Those that don't, I'll talk you through it now. Science has always worked on disproof. If you have an idea, look for evidence to the contrary. You design experiments to challenge that theory, to find edge conditions where the theory breaks down. If you've collected good data about the problem, you can use that to challenge each theory. So if you have a look at the example here, never mind what a framus is, never mind what fibrillating is, it's affecting framus number 2 and not the framus numbers 1, 3, or 4. And then the colleague says, well, could it be snip packet wear? Well, maybe. Okay, let's talk about that. If that's the cause, Jim, why does it not affect the other machines? And he says, well, maybe that's the only one with a worn snip packet. Okay, so if the snip packet starts to wear, why would we get a sudden start to the problem on the 20th? Surely we'd kind of get a little bit of a problem earlier than that. It's just kind of fallen off a cliff here. The machine's just not working properly. And so what we're illustrating here is if you've got enough information, you can use that information to challenge every theory. If the explanation is missing or not good enough, this may not be the cause. Bin it and beware of unseen assumptions. Now, what those of you new to KT will notice is there are two columns here, is and is not. And it's just as important to make sure that your people write down items that could be affected but are not, as much as items that are affected. We're always looking for what could cause a problem with the framers fibrillating at the sound at the end of the factory and on the snip packet, and start at this time. And we do also need to be focused on what would also not be causing problems on other machines at other locations. And so the key to all of this is assemble as much data as you can, as quickly as you can at the start of a problem, because then you can make this disproof work. And you can come in and say, if anybody's got a great idea, thank you very much for the idea. If that's the cause, why this machine and not that? Why at this time and not earlier? Why this error code and not another? Why these locations and not those? You will do yourself and your colleagues a huge favor by doing this, and doing it a lot. Write down each theory, clarify, challenge, eliminate the stuff that doesn't fit the data. I'd love to hear how you're getting on trying this. You can pick up these slides obviously in the attachments, and some of you have already downloaded them. And there's also details in the attachment of e-learning if you want to know a bit more, which you will also find in the Kepner-Tregoe shop. If you want to go and have a look there, you will find there's another completely different webinar tomorrow, which is not on the finding cause line, but more on the choosing a solution line. It's been lovely having you here. And we have just a couple of minutes left for questions if you want to ask them. Let me go back to the previous slide in case that prompts a question. So we've reached our 15th minute. I hope you enjoy the rest of your cup of tea or your sandwich. I may see you tomorrow if you've signed up for that. Do look out for other KT webinars that help you solve your problems. And if you need more, do get in touch with me directly at Kepner-Tregoe. You probably all have found my email by now. Bye-bye, everybody.